Hey everyone, I'm Ben Bolger and welcome to the Expat Blueprint, the channel dedicated to educating expats to financial freedom. This is episode number 11, and I think it's going to be a popular topic because from my experience, one of the most common goals from the expats that I work with is to come out, save enough money and buy a property. It's like this huge milestone for us humans to get ourselves on the property ladder. It's like somehow it shows the world we're moving up in life. Especially us Brits, we're brainwashed into thinking that buying property is one of the only sensible investments. You always hear people say things like, nothing can go wrong with property, or I only trust bricks and mortar. Whilst I don't think that people should be tunnel visioned in thinking that property is the only sensible investment, I do really like it as an asset class. So today, I wanted to talk to you about investing in rental property. No, I'm not talking about just ploughing money into your family home, the one that you're living in. For me, that's not really an investment, but that's a topic for another day. So I'm sure you're all aware, rental property or buy-to-let is when an investor purchases a property with the intention of allowing other members of the public to live in the property in exchange for a monthly fee. That's what we call rent. This is as opposed to the actual owner living in the property themselves. It's pretty straightforward, right? You're offering up your asset for someone else to use. The same way that you'd rent a car, a suit, a storage space, and so on. The objective of today is to briefly outline all the cool things about owning properties and the advantages of using them as an investment tool, but then also give you the key considerations of buying rental property and the things you need to be aware of. At least if you do decide that's what you want to do, then you're in a position to make an informed decision. Okay, let's go through some of the benefits of investing in rental properties. Number one, it's easy to understand. I feel the reason why people are so inclined to just want to buy property is because they can just understand it. They're purchasing something that they can see and touch, and that gives them a warm and fuzzy feeling. As opposed to, say, stocks and shares, which just feels like numbers on a piece of paper or a computer screen. Even though property is just like any other type of investment and experiences price volatility, at least an owner can still walk down the street and be like, that's mine, I own it. Number two is the continued demand for properties to rent. As many of the major cities worldwide see property prices increase to extremely expensive levels, more of the population are forced to rent. The UK expects to see a huge shift in national behaviour, as it's predicted that by 2045, 55% of the population will be renting as opposed to buying. This is good for property investors because the higher the demand for properties to rent, the more the investor can charge the tenant for the privilege of renting their property. It's just pure economics, supply versus demand. Number three, there's not one but two types of investment return with property. Obviously, we've just mentioned the increase in house prices. We call this capital appreciation. We buy a property with the hope that one day, when we choose to sell it, we'll be able to sell it for a price that is considerably more than what we bought it for. The second type of return is the monthly income generated by the tenants paying rent. This is initially used to cover the mortgage payment. However, once you clear the mortgage, you have an asset that's paying you a monthly income for life. Obviously, as long as it's rented out. For this reason, many people buy property as a strategy for retirement because it's a simple way to create income streams. Number four is competitive mortgage rates. Now, this hasn't always been a benefit and won't necessarily always be a benefit going forward. However, we are currently living in a time where interest rates are at historical lows. This means that the banks are charging you less to borrow money than they have in the past. Cheap mortgage interest rates will give you a better return on your property. Number five is leveraging. We've just mentioned cheap borrowing costs. Well, just borrowing in general can be a benefit when purchasing property. Now, I'm normally against taking out debt, but when it comes to buying property, there aren't many people walking the planet who can just go and buy a decent property in cash. Using the bank's money allows you to gain full ownership of the property, even though you've only contributed your deposit, which is likely to be 20 to 30% of the property price. Not only that, when the property price increases in value, you get the full growth on the property and not just 20 to 30% of the growth as per your deposit. This is what we call leveraging. Number six is tax deductible costs. This benefit is increasingly becoming less and less in most countries. However, there are still some costs that you can deduct from your profits so you can pay less in tax in a given year or when you come to sell the property. These are called allowable expenses and include items such as mortgage interest, letting agents fees, legals fees, landlord insurance, maintenance costs, and utility bills. And number seven, you're your own boss. By purchasing rental property, you're effectively creating an income stream where you have no one to answer to. No nagging boss, no set hours, no restricted holiday. This is the power of passive income, and this is what I'm encouraging everyone to strive for. Now let's look at some of the things that you should really consider or at least be aware of when you're looking to invest in property. Number one is the high entry costs. Buying property has a large cost attached to it, which can often set investors back years before getting started. Consider a £250,000 property. An expat is likely to need around about £70,000 to £75,000 in the deposit alone, not considering all the fees and taxes attached. Whereas investing in other type of assets can be done with considerably less and can get you on your investment journey so much sooner. Number 2 is price fluctuations. As with other types of investment, property prices can rise and fall. Just because it's a tangible asset, which is just a fancy word for saying that you can see or touch it, does not make it immune to changes in the economy and government legislation. Political events such as Brexit can have a big impact on the value of your property, which makes it quite possible that when you come to sell your property, you can experience losses. Number 3 is taxation. Again, like other investments, you pay tax. You are firstly liable for income tax on the monthly return that is generated through rent. This will need to be declared via an annual tax return, as well as the tax on your profit when you come to sell the property. This is called capital gains tax. Therefore, the gains or the income that you thought you would have been making might be lower because of tax. Number 4 is obtaining a mortgage. As an expat, one of the biggest struggles is securing a mortgage to purchase a property. The number of banks that are willing to lend to non-residents is a lot less, and the banks that are willing to lend are going to want you to have a larger deposit than what would be required for typical residents. Expats typically need a minimum of 30% deposit when looking to obtain a mortgage. Number 5 is that property is an illiquid asset. One of the biggest issues with property is that once you've tied your money up, it's very difficult to turn it back into cash very quickly if you need it. To release money from your property, you're going to either need to sell the property or change the mortgage, both of which can take time to do. It's not like you can go and sell your kitchen or bathroom if you need to free up some spare cash. Number 6 is maintenance, voids and headaches. As a property owner, you take on a lot of responsibility. Things can break or need repair, the property can experience vacant periods, or you could have difficult tenants. These can all lead to costing you time and money. Dealing with all of this from another country is likely to be difficult. You can always acquire the services of letting agents and legal advisors, but you're obviously going to have to pay for this. So there you have it, a very quick overview of things that you should know about property investments. I feel like this is such a big topic for people. We can do a series on property investing to help people understand what makes a good property investment and what are the things to avoid. But in the meantime, if you have any questions about property or all things financial planning, then get in touch via email or DM through our socials. I'd be happy to help. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Please leave us a review. We'd love to hear your feedback. See you all next week, and remember to always dream big.